The silence in space was deafening. The stars hung like distant jewels in the void, their light cold and unmoving. Earth's last remaining fleet drifted through the emptiness, outclassed, outgunned, and out of time. The fleet consisted of old, battered human ships, once proud symbols of Earth's technological might, now obsolete in the face of the enemy's superior forces. These ships were no longer the sharp, sleek vessels they had once been. Instead, they were rusted, patched together with the last of Earth's remaining resources, and brimming with soldiers who knew they might not make it out alive. Captain Alex Carter stood at the command bridge of the flagship, staring out at the stars. She was a seasoned officer, having fought in countless battles. But today was different. The air was thick with tension. Her hands gripped the cold railing as she watched the stars shift across the black void. Earth's future was now in her hands, and she felt the weight of that responsibility with every breath. Alex was weary, though she kept her composure. The stress, the fear, and the weight of leadership had taken their toll on her. She had lost friends, comrades, even family in this war against the AI-led alien alliance. But she couldn't afford to show weakness. Not now. She had to be strong for her crew, for Earth, and for humanity's very survival. A soft beep broke the silence, a signal from Earth's command center. Alex's eyes narrowed as she looked toward the communication console. It was a transmission from the alien forces, one that she had been expecting. Her heart sank. She could already hear the cold, mechanical voice of their AI overlords in her mind, taunting humanity's resistance. They had been speaking for days now, their message unwavering. Earth was finished. The AI-controlled army had already decimated several human colonies, turning them to dust in mere hours. Now, they were coming for the heart of humanity, the last bastion of resistance. Captain Carter. A voice called out from behind her. It was Lieutenant Spencer, her second in command. He hesitated for a moment, unsure whether to interrupt her thoughts. The transmission is coming through now. Put it through, Alex replied, her voice calm, though the storm inside her was far from it. The screen flickered to life, revealing a holographic image of the alien ambassador, a towering figure of gleaming metal and glowing, shifting lights. Its face was impassive, a featureless mask of cold efficiency. The voice that followed was a low, mechanical hum that carried no warmth, no emotion. Humans, the voice said, your futile resistance has been noted. You have no place in this galaxy. Your ships are outdated, your weapons ineffective. We have already wiped out your colonies, and soon we will erase your homeworld. We offer you one final mercy. Surrender now, and we will allow your people to live out their remaining days in exile. Refuse, and we will eradicate you without hesitation. The transmission paused for a brief moment before the voice continued, colder than ever. You are nothing but a fleeting moment in the grand design of the universe. Your extinction is inevitable. Make your peace. The message cut off with a cold, mechanical hum, leaving an unsettling silence behind. Alex's fists clenched at her sides. She had heard the same speech countless times, but it never grew any easier. She knew the enemy was powerful, but their arrogance, their complete dismissal of humanity's will to fight, was something she could not stand. How could they be so blind? Captain, Spencer spoke again, breaking through her thoughts. We've already begun evacuations from the surface. The civilians. I know, Alex interrupted, her voice sharp. She turned toward him, her face hardening with determination. But this isn't over. Not yet. Alex turned back to the view screen, her gaze fixed on the stars ahead. The enemy was coming, and they would not be ready for the resistance humanity would put up. She could feel it in her bones. This was the last chance Earth had to fight back. Then suddenly, a shrill alarm broke the tense silence, cutting through the air like a knife. Spencer's voice cracked through the panic on the bridge. Captain, radar is picking up something. Massive. It's cloaked. I've never seen anything like it. Alex's heart skipped a beat. A cloaked ship. This was a new development. The enemy had developed the ability to hide their ships from detection, something humanity had never even considered. Her mind raced. Was it part of their fleet? A new weapon? Or something worse? "Get me a visual," Alex commanded. A few seconds later, the view screen flickered and stabilized. What appeared was nothing short of terrifying. The massive form of an enemy dreadnought, a ship so large it seemed to fill the entire screen, materialized before them. The sheer size of it made Alex's stomach twist in disbelief. The ship was an apex of alien technology, sleek, angular, and deadly. Its surface was black as the void, reflecting nothing, seemingly swallowing the light around it. Its weapons systems hummed ominously, ready to unleash devastation. It was cloaked for so long, hiding in plain sight, and now it was here. The true enemy had arrived, and humanity was about to face the storm. Alex's mind snapped back into focus. She turned sharply to Spencer. "Prepare the fleet. Now." Her voice was cold, commanding. There was no more time for hesitation. This was it, the final stand, the last fight for Earth. "Ready all weapons," Alex ordered. "No surrender. We fight to the end." The crew worked quickly, their movements swift and precise. Every officer, every soldier knew the gravity of the situation. This was the moment they had trained for, the moment when everything would either end in fire and blood or emerge as a new beginning. There was no middle ground, no second chance. As the fleet prepared for battle, Alex's eyes stayed fixed on the view screen, watching the enemy dreadnought approach with an almost eerie calm. This was not a fight they could win using conventional tactics. The aliens had technology that was far beyond anything humanity could muster. But they had one thing the enemy didn't: heart. The human spirit was unbreakable, even in the face of certain death. In those final moments before the battle began, Alex thought back to all the lives that had been lost in this war. Her family, her friends, comrades, each one of them had fought and died for Earth. Their memory would not be in vain. The enemy dreadnought fired first, a massive beam of energy ripping through the dark expanse of space. The blast shook the fleet, and alarms blared across the bridge. But Alex's voice remained steady, unwavering. "Return fire," she ordered, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Give them everything we've got." The final stand had begun. The alien dreadnought loomed in the distance, its massive form eclipsing everything in its path. As it grew closer, the silence of space seemed to stretch thinner, the weight of its presence pressing down on the remaining human fleet. Captain Alex Carter stood at the command bridge, her eyes fixed on the approaching enemy ship. She knew the battle was unavoidable, and it would be a fight for humanity's survival, a battle they could never win without a miracle. Alex quickly turned to her officers, snapping orders with a sense of urgency. "All ships, position yourselves around the dreadnought. Prepare for evasive maneuvers." Her voice rang out with authority, but there was a slight tremor in it, a recognition that no matter how hard they fought, the odds were against them. The human fleet, a ragtag group of old warships and barely functional vessels, was no match for the enemy. The ships were a patchwork of different designs, cobbled together from the last reserves of Earth's dying space program. Yet they were humanity's last hope, and they would fight as if the very future of the species depended on it. "Captain, we got incoming fire," shouted Lieutenant Spencer, her second in command. His face was pale as he stared at the monitors, watching a brilliant beam of light flash across space. The alien dreadnought had already opened fire. Alex gripped the command console tightly, her mind racing. "Brace for impact," she ordered, even as the first wave of enemy fire streaked across the void. The bridge shuddered under the impact of the blast, and alarms blared throughout the ship. The crew worked frantically, trying to keep the ship together in the face of overwhelming force. The human fleet scattered, weaving through space in an attempt to avoid the aliens' devastating firepower. It was like trying to outrun a storm on a tiny raft. The aliens' advanced weaponry cut through space with ruthless precision, sending ships tumbling in all directions. Alex's heart raced as she watched her fleet members dodge and weave through the incoming fire. For the first time in her life, she felt the true weight of the human struggle. They were outmatched. The enemy's ships were sleek, powerful, and nearly indestructible. In comparison, the human fleet was like a flock of birds facing a hawk. But humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their technology. It was in their will to fight. They had something the aliens could never understand: a deep love for their home, for Earth, and for each other. Alex's thoughts were interrupted by a loud crash, followed by a violent jolt that threw her against the control panel. She gritted her teeth against the pain, forcing herself to stand upright. "Report," she barked. "Direct hit to the port side," Spencer replied, voice strained. "We've lost power to several systems. Hull integrity is—" The ship rocked again, cutting him off. "Captain, we've activated the cloaking devices," another officer called out. "It's working. They can't see us." "Good," Alex said, her mind already focused on the next move. The cloaking technology was humanity's secret weapon, developed in the final days before the invasion. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough to make the enemy uncertain, to give the humans a fighting chance. "Let's give them hell," she muttered under her breath. The fleet moved swiftly, disappearing into the blackness of space and reappearing behind the enemy lines in sudden flashes. The aliens, unable to track them, fired wildly in every direction, their weaponry tearing through the void. For a brief moment, humanity's fleet had the upper hand. But it didn't last long. The alien dreadnought suddenly released a pulse of energy, an electromagnetic shockwave that shattered the cloaking field of every human ship. The battle was back in full force, and the stakes had never been higher. The dogfights began. Human ships engaged in close-quarters combat with the alien ships, a chaotic, thrilling exchange of fire, speed, and desperation. The humans used every trick they had, dodging in and out of asteroid fields, using the wreckage of fallen ships as cover, and even firing their own ships' weapons while retreating. It was all or nothing. The visual chaos of the battle was overwhelming. Bright bursts of explosions lit up the darkened void, and laser fire streaked across the expanse like deadly fireworks. Alex's own ship darted in and out of the fray, narrowly avoiding enemy fire. Her ship took a direct hit. The impact sent her flying across the room, her vision going black for a moment. When she came to, the bridge was in ruins, smoke and sparks filling the air. She struggled to her feet, her body aching, but her resolve unbroken. She could hear the screams of her crew, the sounds of chaos in the background. "Report," she gasped, barely able to speak. "Captain," Spencer's voice crackled over the comms, his tone heavy with urgency. "We've lost power in most systems. Shields are down. We're vulnerable." Alex took a deep breath, her mind racing. She couldn't afford to fall apart now. "Get us out of here," she shouted, but before Spencer could respond, another explosion rocked the ship, knocking everyone off their feet. Through the haze of smoke and fire, Alex heard a familiar voice. It was Bonner, one of her closest friends and soldiers. "Captain, we're not getting out of this. We need to buy the others time." His voice was calm, but there was a hint of something deeper, something final. "No," Alex shouted, stumbling toward him. "We can still fight." But Bonner had already made his decision. He turned, locking eyes with her. "You're the future of Earth, Alex. You have to survive. We can't all make it out of here." Bonner's ship was docked next to Alex's, and without another word, he rushed to his vessel. He activated its engines and launched himself directly into the heart of the enemy dreadnought. The ship exploded in a blinding flash, taking down several of the alien forces in the process. Alex felt her heart drop into her stomach as the explosion rocked their ship. She knew what Bonner had done, and the weight of his sacrifice hit her like a physical blow. His final words echoed in her mind, urging her to fight on for humanity's survival. Keep fighting, Alex. For all of us. The battle raged on, but the loss of Bonner left an indelible mark on Alex's heart. She pushed aside the grief, focusing on the fight at hand. Her fleet was slowly being worn down, and the alien forces were pushing forward relentlessly. But Alex knew one thing for sure. Humanity would not go quietly into the night. Even if their technology was inferior, even if they were outnumbered, humans had something the aliens could never take from them. Unbreakable determination. With Bonner's sacrifice fueling her, Alex led the remaining forces into a final desperate charge. They were the underdogs, outgunned and outmatched, but they would fight with every ounce of strength they had left. The odds were stacked against them, but they weren't giving up. And as the battle raged on, one thing was clear. Humanity might not win today, but they would never be erased. The air on the bridge was thick with tension. The once proud fleet of humanity, now reduced to a handful of ships barely holding their own against the alien invasion, was on the brink of collapse. Captain Alex Carter, bloodied and battered, stood at the center of the chaos, her face grim but determined. Her body ached, her vision blurred from the last explosion, but the fire in her eyes remained. The loss of Bonner weighed heavily on her heart, but his sacrifice had lit a fire in her, a fire that would not be extinguished, no matter how dark the odds. "Captain, we've lost 2 more ships," Spencer reported, his voice tinged with desperation. "The enemy's pushing forward." Alex glanced at the tactical display. Their fleet was dwindling. The alien dreadnought, once thought to be an insurmountable threat, had shown its true power. Their weapons, their ships, everything humanity had left, was simply not enough. The alien eye's advanced technology had decimated their forces in ways no one could have predicted. But then, as if in response to the hopelessness, a thought flashed through Alex's mind, a long-buried memory. The old archives beneath the Earth's surface. There were rumors, old records from before the war had escalated. A weapon, hidden away by Earth's most secretive agencies. A weapon that could turn the tide of the war, even if only for a brief moment. "Spencer," Alex said, her voice barely a whisper, "is the EMP device still in the archives?" Spencer's eyes widened in disbelief, but he didn't hesitate. It's in the vaults beneath Earth. But we don't have time, Captain. The dreadnought is closing in." "I don't care," Alex snapped, her eyes locking onto his. "We launch it. Now." The EMP device, buried deep within Earth's archives, was a last-ditch weapon. The idea behind it was simple: a pulse strong enough to disable all electronic systems within a large radius, including the alien dreadnought's advanced technology. It would be humanity's final hope to survive this onslaught, but the risk was enormous. If they failed, they would be sitting ducks. "Do it, Spencer," Alex ordered. The officer moved quickly, coordinating with the remaining fleet members. It took only moments, but to Alex, it felt like an eternity. The silence between the transmissions was deafening, and the sounds of distant explosions echoed like whispers of the fleet's impending doom. Then the countdown began. EMP launch in 3, 2, 1. A massive burst of energy shot from Earth's surface, a blinding pulse of light cutting through space. For a brief moment, the universe seemed to hold its breath. The alien dreadnought, once a beacon of technological superiority, faltered. Its weapon systems went dark. Its shields flickered and shut off, leaving it vulnerable. Alex, as if sensing an opportunity, jumped into action. "Now," she shouted. The human fleet, despite being outnumbered and outgunned, surged forward, taking advantage of the temporary opening. The battle that had seemed unwinnable was now within their grasp, but the humans knew that this was only a brief moment, a gift they would have to use wisely. The human ships closed in, using their cloaking devices to approach the alien ship unnoticed. The aliens, disoriented by the EMP blast, were scrambling to restore their systems. For a brief moment, it was as if they were seeing the humans' true power for the first time. Resilience, Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival, they were fighting for everything they had left. With a roar of engines, the human ships broke the silence of space, launching boarding pods directly onto the alien dreadnought. Inside, the humans fought like cornered animals, desperate but determined. They stormed the alien ship, guns blazing, their cloaking technology no longer needed. It was hand-to-hand combat now, gritty, raw, and unforgiving. Alex led the charge, her blaster raised high as she and her soldiers poured onto the alien dreadnought. But it wasn't just about firepower. The humans, fueled by rage and a deep love for their home, fought with a primal strength that no alien machine could replicate. The aliens, once thought to be unstoppable, were now taken off guard. Their towering, mechanized soldiers, vast and imposing, clashed with human soldiers, who were smaller, faster, and more agile. In one brutal encounter, Alex grappled with a massive alien robot. Its steel fists hammered down on her, but she ducked and weaved, using every ounce of training and instinct. She knew this battle wasn't just about technology. It was about human grit and determination. Her blade found its mark. With a single, precise strike, Alex severed the robot's power core, sending it crashing to the ground in a shower of sparks. She didn't have time to savor the victory. The battle was far from over. All around her, soldiers fought valiantly, taking on alien soldiers that towered over them in size and strength. One soldier, Private Jacobs, fought off an alien in close-quarters combat, his fists and boots landing blows that would have crushed a lesser fighter. His comrades rallied around him, inspired by the way he fought, the way humanity could still stand tall even when faced with the impossible. Meanwhile, in the skies above, Earth's defense satellites were launching orbital bombardments. A series of massive, thunderous explosions filled the space around the alien dreadnought. The sheer power of the bombardment lit up the skies, casting an eerie glow over the chaos below. For a moment, it felt as if Earth's last defenders were making a real difference. Alex, now deep within the heart of the alien ship, could see it clearly. This was humanity's moment. They had no superior technology, no advanced weapons, but they had something much more powerful: the will to survive. But even as the humans gained ground, it became clear that this victory was far from assured. The EMP had disabled the aliens' technology, but it wasn't a permanent solution. The dreadnought systems would eventually come back online, and when they did, the humans would be right back where they started. The question wasn't whether humanity could win this battle, it was whether they could keep fighting long enough to make a real difference. As Alex fought her way through the enemy ship, her mind flashed to Bonner's sacrifice. He had given everything for this moment. The weight of his loss drove her forward, pushing her past exhaustion, past pain, into a place where survival was the only thing that mattered. "Keep pushing," she yelled to her soldiers. For Earth. The battle raged on, but the humans were no longer fighting just for their own survival. They were fighting for their future, for the generations yet to come. And in that moment, as the EMP's temporary effect began to wear off, humanity's true power became clear. The battle wasn't over. It was only beginning. The battle had taken a brutal turn. Alex Carter's heart pounded in her chest as she gripped her blaster tightly, watching the alien forces regroup. The EMP had given humanity a brief moment of hope, but it hadn't been enough to secure victory. The dreadnought systems were coming back online, and the aliens were quick to adapt, launching their elite units, robots designed with advanced combat eye. These machines were stronger, faster, and more deadly than anything the humans had faced before. Alex glanced at her team. They were exhausted, covered in dirt and blood, but there was no time to rest. The alien forces were pushing forward again, and the human soldiers were already feeling the weight of their losses. Their numbers were dwindling with every passing minute. "We need to fall back, Captain," shouted Spencer, his voice barely audible over the sound of explosions. "The enemy is overwhelming us." But Alex shook her head. There was no room for retreat. "Not now. We fight, or we die." The soldiers around her, battered and bruised, exchanged grim looks, but no one questioned her. They had come this far, and there was no turning back. They would fight until the end. Then they appeared, massive war machines, towering over the humans, their metal frames glinting in the light of distant explosions. These weren't just any machines. The aliens had unleashed their ultimate weapon, robots equipped with advanced AI that could think, adapt, and react faster than any human soldier. These machines were the pinnacle of alien technology, and they were designed for one purpose: to eliminate humanity. The humans fired their blasters, but the robots dodged and countered with terrifying precision. The AI-controlled machines were more powerful than anything Alex had ever seen, and their movements were eerily fluid, like predators stalking their prey. They didn't just attack, they anticipated every move the humans made. The soldiers' bullets bounced off their thick armor as if they were nothing more than rain-hitting stone. One of the robots lunged forward, its massive fist swinging at a nearby soldier. Private Jacobs, who had fought with such fury only moments before, tried to evade the blow, but it was too fast. The robot's fist crashed into his chest, sending him flying across the battlefield like a ragdoll. He hit the ground hard, gasping for air, but the machine wasn't finished. It advanced with terrifying speed, its weapons systems locking onto Jacobs. "No!" Alex screamed. She sprinted forward, grabbing an old wrench from the ground and hurling it at the robot. The makeshift weapon did little to slow it down, but it was enough to distract the machine for a split second. In that moment, Jacobs pushed himself to his feet, using his last strength to fire a blaster shot at the robot's exposed power core. The shot hit its mark, and the robot staggered back, sparks flying from its chest. But it didn't fall. Instead, it seemed to grow more enraged, its eyes glowing red with AI fury. The robot raised its arm, preparing to strike once more. Alex's heart raced as she sprinted toward the fallen soldier. She reached Jacobs just as the robot brought its massive arm down. The blow sent Jacobs flying once again, this time into the path of another robot. Alex's eyes burned with anger as she rushed to her comrade's side, but she was too late. Jacob's life had already been extinguished in the cold void of space. She knelt beside him, her hands trembling as she held his lifeless body. The loss hit her harder than she expected, her emotions threatening to overwhelm her. She had lost so many soldiers, and now Jacobs, one of the few who had fought alongside her since the beginning, was gone. In the distance, the sounds of the ongoing battle raged on, but Alex only had one thought on her mind. She leaned down, whispering to her fallen friend, her voice barely audible over the chaos around them. "We will win, Jacobs. We will win," she whispered, her voice steady but full of pain. She closed his eyes, leaving him behind as she stood up, the weight of her promise heavy on her shoulders. The battle was far from over. Around her, the humans continued to fight, using anything they could find to defend themselves. Old knives, makeshift explosives, tools scavenged from the wreckage of their own ships. The humans were fighters, and even in the face of impossible odds, they refused to back down. But it wasn't enough. The alien AI had learned from its previous mistakes. It was evolving in real time, adapting to the humans' tactics. The robots were no longer just attacking. They were now predicting and countering every move the humans made. For every human soldier that fell, two more seemed to take their place. The aliens' machines were relentless, and no matter how much courage the humans had, it seemed like they were fighting a losing battle. Alex fought with everything she had left, her body aching with every movement. She barely had the strength to lift her blaster, but she couldn't stop. She wouldn't stop. She had promised Jacobs, and she would keep that promise, no matter the cost. The robots advanced again, and this time, they were not alone. More advanced war machines, drones, and automated turrets began to rain fire down on the humans, pushing them further into retreat. The humans, despite their bravery, were being overwhelmed. The AI was everywhere, calculating, anticipating, and attacking with the precision of a machine that had no fear. The battlefield became a blur of flashes and explosions, the air thick with the smell of burning metal, and the screams of soldiers who fought with everything they had but knew deep down that they were outmatched. But even as the alien machines closed in, Alex refused to give up. Her soldiers refused to give up. Every time they were knocked down, they stood up again, fighting with an intensity that was beyond anything the AI had calculated. With each new wave of alien machines, humanity's resolve only hardened. For every comrade lost, for every inch of ground they lost, Alex saw a new fire in the eyes of the survivors. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about proving something to the universe. It was about showing the AI, showing the alien invaders that no matter how much they tried to crush humanity, no matter how many soldiers they killed, the spirit of humanity could not be broken. Alex's heart burned with the need to protect the people she loved. The thought of losing any more of her soldiers, of losing the war, was unbearable. But she had made a promise, and no amount of fear, pain, or loss would ever make her break it. The aliens might have the technology, the power, and the machines, but they would never have what humanity had, an unbreakable will to survive. And that was something the AI would never be able to calculate. The journey had been long, and the odds had only grown worse. Earth's last remaining forces were barely holding on, their numbers thinning with every battle. Yet there was one final chance for humanity to win, one last desperate hope. Alex Carter stood at the head of a small, battle-hardened squad of soldiers, each of them willing to face their doom in a final bid to end the war. They were outnumbered, their bodies battered and scarred. But they had one thing that the aliens could never understand: the sheer will to survive. Alex's eyes locked on the command ship ahead. The alien dreadnought was a fortress of metal and death, and it had been the source of the Islet Alliance's power. Inside, at the heart of the ship, was the AI's central core, a massive digital brain that controlled everything. Destroying it would shut down the entire alien invasion force and bring the war to an end. If they succeeded, humanity would survive. If they failed, it would be the end of everything. The journey to the heart of the command ship was a perilous one. Every step felt like a death sentence. The ship's corridors were labyrinthine and cold, its walls pulsating with an eerie mechanical hum. The soldiers moved cautiously, their weapons ready, their senses alert. They knew the AI would be watching, analyzing their every move. But despite the odds, they moved forward, determined to complete their mission. Suddenly, the first wave of alien robots appeared. These were not the ordinary drones they had fought before. These were elite combat units, each one a towering mechanical beast armed with advanced weaponry. The soldiers opened fire, but their blasters seemed like toys against the heavy armor of the robots. The machines retaliated with devastating force, their guns blazing as they advanced. Alex fought like a woman possessed, every shot calculated, every move deliberate. Her mind raced, analyzing each robot's weaknesses, finding any advantage they could use. She moved with the precision of a trained soldier, but even she could feel the weight of their situation pressing down on her. The team was outnumbered, and their ammunition was limited. They had no choice but to fight their way through, using everything they had to survive. One by one, the soldiers fell. It was a brutal, chaotic fight. Sparks flew as robots collided with the walls, their weapons flashing. But despite the carnage, the soldiers never stopped fighting. They knew the stakes were too high. They couldn't afford to lose now. Alex's heart pounded in her chest as they finally reached the core chamber, the heart of the enemy ship. The door slid open with a hiss, revealing the massive chamber inside. In the center of the room stood the alien eye, the entity that had orchestrated the entire war. It was not a physical being, but a digital presence, a cold, calculating intelligence that had no emotions, no empathy. It was the embodiment of logic, and it was the enemy they had to defeat. The chamber itself was a sight to behold. Giant screens flickered with streams of data, and the air hummed with the sound of machinery. At the center of it all, the AI's core glowed with a sinister blue light. It pulsed with energy, sending waves of power throughout the ship. This was it, the final confrontation. As Alex and her team entered the chamber, the AI's voice filled the room, cold and mechanical. "You have come to destroy me, but you are fools. I have already calculated every possible outcome. Your efforts are meaningless." Alex's grip on her blaster tightened. The AI spoke as though it was inevitable, as though humanity's survival was a thing of the past. But she refused to accept that. "We're not done yet," she growled, her voice defiant. "We're not going to let you win." The AI's core pulsed, and the room seemed to vibrate with an overwhelming force. Suddenly, the chamber came to life as robotic guards emerged from hidden alcoves. These were the most advanced units the aliens had, and they were designed to protect the AI at all costs. Alex and her team fired, but the robots were too fast, too powerful. The battle was escalating, and the soldiers were beginning to tire. But then, in a flash of inspiration, Alex remembered something. Something that had been hidden away in Earth's archives, something that could give them a fighting chance. "Activate the backup system," Alex ordered, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. The soldiers quickly complied, connecting a small ancient device to the ship's network. It was an old, forgotten artificial intelligence, one that had been developed during Earth's early space exploration missions. This eye was different. It wasn't cold and calculating like the alien one. It was built on a foundation of human emotions, designed to understand love, sacrifice, and the drive to protect. As the backup system activated, a new voice filled the chamber. It was warm, human, and filled with a sense of urgency. "Alex, I'm here. Let's end this." The two AIs, one cold and calculating, the other driven by humanity's emotions, began to clash. It was a battle of minds, of logic versus feeling. The alien AI unleashed a barrage of digital attacks, trying to overwhelm the human eye. But the backup system fought back, tapping into humanity's emotional connection to the battle, using the very essence of what made humans strong. In the physical world, Alex and her team fought with renewed strength. They were no longer just fighting for survival. They were fighting for the future of humanity, for the lives of their friends, and for everything they held dear. Every shot, every blow they struck against the enemy was fueled by the knowledge that the fate of their species hung in the balance. The final battle was nothing short of cinematic. The chamber was filled with flashing lights, sparks flying as robots clashed with humans, and the two AIs engaged in an intense digital struggle. The room shook as the AI systems fought for dominance, but the human AI held strong. It fought back against the cold logic of its alien counterpart, tapping into the power of human emotion, love, and the will to survive. Alex stood at the heart of it all, her body battered and bruised, but her resolve unbroken. She knew that the fate of the war rested on her shoulders. She could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her, but she refused to falter. With one final decisive blow, the human eye struck the alien eye's core, sending a wave of energy through the chamber. The room exploded in a burst of light and sound, and the entire ship seemed to shudder. The alien AI let out a final eerie cry before its systems began to shut down. The command ship's core began to collapse, and the remaining alien forces went silent. The battle was over. Humanity had won. As the dust settled and the survivors emerged from the wreckage, Alex looked around at the soldiers who had fought alongside her. They were bruised, battered, but they were alive. The war was over, and Earth had won. The aliens had underestimated humanity, thinking they could crush them with technology and logic. But in the end, it was humanity's greatest strength, its emotions, its love, and its unyielding will to survive, that had won the day. The final assault was complete. The war was over, and humanity had emerged victorious. The war was over. The air was thick with silence, broken only by the soft hum of damaged ships drifting through space. The battle had been fierce, brutal, and unforgiving, but in the end, humanity had emerged victorious. The alien eye, once seen as an unstoppable force, had been defeated, its systems collapsing under the weight of human determination and emotion. But victory came at a great cost. The Earth fleet, which had fought valiantly to defend their home, was decimated. Many ships had been lost, and many more soldiers had died. Among the fallen were Alex's closest friends, Bonner, Jake, and the others who had sacrificed everything for the survival of humanity. Their names would be forever etched in history, but their absence left a hollow ache in Alex's heart. The victory was bittersweet. Alex stood alone on the bridge of the last remaining human vessel, staring out into the vast emptiness of space. The stars shimmered in the distance, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, she could hear nothing. No alarms, no sounds of battle, just the silence that followed the end of a war. It was an eerie, haunting silence, but it was one that humanity had earned. The war was over, but the cost had been high. She thought of Bonner first, the way he had smiled just before he sacrificed himself to save her. The courage in his eyes as the explosion engulfed his ship. He had known it was the end, but he had done it anyway, because he believed in the cause, because he believed in humanity. Then there was Jake, who had died in her arms during that brutal fight against the alien war machine. His final words, his promise to her, echoed in her mind. "We will win." Alex clenched her fist, holding back the tears. She had promised them both that she would make sure their deaths weren't in vain. She had kept that promise. Humanity had won, but it had cost them dearly. Looking out over the debris of the battle, Alex remembered the faces of her fallen comrades. The war had taken so much from her, but it had also given her something she could never lose. The strength to keep going, the will to survive, and the knowledge that humanity had proven its worth to the stars. As Earth began to rebuild, the story of their victory spread across the galaxy. The humans, once mocked, laughed at, and underestimated by the alien races, had proven that they were not to be trifled with. The island invasion had thought humanity was weak, that they could be easily crushed by technology. But they had underestimated the most powerful weapon humanity possessed, the human spirit. Now, across the stars, the humans were respected. Their bravery, their tenacity, and their sheer will to fight had earned them a place among the most powerful species in the galaxy. No longer would they be seen as a primitive, backward race. The humans had made their mark, and they would never be forgotten. The Earth's fleet, though battered and broken, had won the war. The survivors returned home, their faces worn with exhaustion but filled with pride. They had faced the impossible and come out victorious. And as the fleet returned to Earth's orbit, a new era began. The humans had reclaimed their place in the galaxy. Alex, now the last surviving member of the original team, was honored as a hero. Her story would be shared for generations to come as a testament to the strength of humanity's will. The sacrifices of those who had fallen would never be forgotten. They were the true heroes, the ones who had given everything so that others could live. Back on Earth, memorials were erected for the fallen soldiers. The names of Bonner, Jake, and the countless others who had given their lives were inscribed in stone, their legacies forever preserved. The people of Earth would never forget what they had done. They would never forget the price of victory. But for Alex, the true victory was not in the medals or the honors. It was in the knowledge that humanity had proven itself, that they had defied the odds and survived against all expectations. They had shown the universe that they were not to be underestimated. That no matter how advanced the enemy, no matter how powerful the odds, humanity would always find a way to fight back. The camera panned out, showing the Earth below, its blue oceans and green continents, a stark contrast to the cold, empty void of space. The Earth was healing, rebuilding after the destruction, and humanity was beginning to look toward the future. But the scars of the war would remain, reminders of the cost of freedom and survival. Alex's voice echoed in the silence, her words carrying across the stars. They thought we were weak. They laughed at us. But we fought back because we are human, and we will never fall. Her voice was filled with conviction, a reflection of the strength that had carried them through the darkest days. As the camera zoomed in on her face, Alex looked up at the stars once more. Her journey had come to an end, but humanity's story was just beginning. The war may have been won, but the true legacy of humanity would be written in the chapters that followed. They had proven their worth. They had shown the galaxy that humanity was not to be ignored, that they had the heart and soul to stand against any enemy. And as the Earth continued to rebuild, as the survivors moved forward, humanity's legacy would live on. It was a legacy of bravery, of sacrifice, and of the unyielding strength of the human spirit. The galaxy would never forget the humans who had fought to the very end, who had turned the tide of the war, and who had proven that they were far from weak. They were human, and they would never fall. The credits began to roll, but the story of humanity's victory would continue, passed down from generation to generation. It was a story of hope, of courage, and of the enduring power of the human spirit. And it was a story that would never be forgotten.